Voiceover: Why ancient humans were terrified of the moon. Runtime: approximately 8:45. Clean narration only. All visual and sound cues removed. For most of human history, the moon was the answer to a lot of questions. Not good questions, scary questions. Who made me crazy? The moon. Why did the crops fail? The moon. Why did I have a bad dream? The moon. Why is that guy over there acting weird? The moon. Very quick science. The moon is a large rocky body about a quarter to the size of Earth, orbiting us from about 239,000 miles away. It reflects sunlight. It doesn't produce any of its own. The moon's phases, new moon, crescent, half, gibbous, full, are just different angles of sunlight hitting the surface as it orbits us. It takes about 29.5 days to complete one cycle. Now, ancient humans noticed the moon immediately. It was impossible to miss, the second brightest object in the sky, changing shape every night, pulling the tides, lighting up the night. It was real, it was powerful, it affected the world. They just had some creative theories about how. The word lunacy comes directly from luna, the Latin word for moon. This wasn't just casual slang, this was medical and legal doctrine. Aristotle and Pliny the Elder both argued that the full moon disturbed the brain because the brain was the moistest organ in the body, and the moon controlled moisture. The full moon pulled fluids toward the head, just like it pulled the tides. In medieval England, this was so accepted that defendants in court could literally argue diminished responsibility due to the moon. Judges took this seriously. There were even specific laws about it in some jurisdictions. The term lunatic appears in official legal documents. Doctors issued moon-related diagnoses. Hospitals tracked lunar cycles alongside patient records. For the record, modern studies have repeatedly tested whether full moons affect mental illness, crime, or hospital admissions. They don't. The moon does not make people crazy. It just makes them feel like it does. Werewolves, half human, half wolf, transformed by the full moon. It's one of the most universal myths in human history. Where did it come from? The oldest written version comes from ancient Greece, specifically the myth of Lycaon, king of Arcadia. Lycaon decided to test whether Zeus was actually a god by serving him a meal of human flesh. Zeus was not amused. He transformed Lycaon into a wolf, cursed to always eat human flesh. The term lycanthropy, the supposed ability to transform into a wolf, comes directly from Lycaon's name. But similar myths exist worldwide. Native American skinwalkers, Norse berserkers said to take on wolf spirits, African witch transformations. The full moon connection appears across multiple cultures. Why? Wolves were the apex predator for most of human history. Full moons lit up the night, making wolf attacks more visible and more terrifying. The moon-wolf connection made intuitive sense. If regular moons were scary, blood moons were absolutely terrifying. A lunar eclipse turns the moon a deep rust-red color, caused by Earth's atmosphere filtering sunlight and bending only the red wavelengths onto the lunar surface. Beautiful science, nightmare appearance. In Mesopotamia, a blood moon was specifically bad news for the king. The red color indicated blood, which indicated the king's death was imminent. The Inca believed a jaguar was attacking and eating the moon. Their response was to make as much noise as possible, beat their dogs to make them bark, and shake spears at the sky to scare the jaguar away. Early Mesopotamian texts describe the blood moon as the moon wearing a mask of blood, which is actually a pretty accurate poetic description. For the Greeks, the moon had several divine personalities, depending on what it was doing. Selene was the titaness of the full moon, beautiful, serene, driving her silver chariot across the night sky. Then there was Artemis, goddess of the hunt, associated with the crescent moon. She was more of a get-things-done type. But the really interesting one was Hecate. Hecate was the goddess of the dark moon, the phase when the moon disappears entirely. She presided over magic, witchcraft, ghosts, and crossroads. She was associated with the new moon, the period of darkness between lunar cycles when the night was at its blackest. This combination, moon as goddess of beauty, moon as goddess of the hunt, moon as goddess of dark magic, created a lunar mythology where the moon could be nurturing, fierce, or genuinely terrifying depending on the phase. Sunmo. In Chinese mythology, the moon has a beautiful and melancholy backstory. Chang'e was a goddess who accidentally, or perhaps not so accidentally, depending on which version you read, consumed the entire elixir of immortality meant for her husband. She floated up into the sky and couldn't come back down. She landed on the moon, where she has lived alone ever since. She's accompanied by a jade rabbit, a magical rabbit who spends eternity grinding herbs on the moon's surface. The Mid-Autumn Festival, one of the most important Chinese holidays celebrated by over 1 billion people annually, commemorates Chang'e's ascension to the moon. The moon in Chinese culture is associated with femininity, reunion, and longing. Beautiful, but also carrying that original note of sadness. For the Babylonians and Assyrians, the moon was Sin, one of the most important gods in the entire pantheon. Not sin as in wrongdoing, Sin as in the Akkadian name Suen. Sin was the father of the sun god and the goddess of Venus. He was higher in the divine hierarchy than the sun. The Babylonians organized their entire calendar around the lunar cycle. Every month began with the new moon. Priests watched obsessively for the first sliver of the crescent. Lunar eclipses were especially ominous. They meant Sin was being attacked or weakened. If the moon god was having a bad time, the entire divine order was at risk, which meant everyone was at risk. Not all moon fear was about death and monsters. The harvest moon, the full moon closest to the autumn equinox, is one of the most practically significant moons in history. During the harvest moon, farmers could work in the fields after sunset using moonlight to continue gathering crops. In the age before electric light, this extra illumination was genuinely life-saving. But even the harvest moon had a dark side. A blood moon or eclipsed harvest moon was doubly terrifying. The most important agricultural light of the year suddenly going red or disappearing right when crops needed to come in. Hey, here's the thing. Ancient people noticed that the tides followed the moon. And they were absolutely right. The moon's gravity genuinely pulls Earth's oceans toward it, creating the tides. A full and new moon create the strongest tidal forces, called spring tides. Half moons create weaker neap tides. This meant ancient mariners, Polynesian navigators, Phoenician sailors, Chinese fishermen learned to read the moon for tidal predictions. This knowledge directly enabled ocean navigation and fishing. The moon is controlling the tides. That observation was correct. From this, ancient humans extrapolated. If the moon controls the oceans, which are massive, maybe it controls other fluids too, like blood, like the brain, which wasn't an unreasonable leap of logic at the time. See, people still believe in full moon effects. Emergency rooms report feeling busier. Police say crime increases. Psychiatric staff claim patients are more agitated. So, does the moon affect human behavior? Researchers have studied this extensively. Emergency room admission data, crime statistics, psychiatric records, sleep studies. Conclusion: there's no consistent evidence the full moon affects most human behavior or health outcomes. However, one thing is real: light. A full moon is significantly brighter than a new moon night. In an era before electric lights, full moons meant you could see predators, see enemies, see things in the dark. Extra brightness in the darkness was legitimately worth being aware of. We now know the moon plays a genuinely enormous role in making Earth livable. The moon stabilizes Earth's axial tilt at about 23.5 degrees. Without the moon, Earth's tilt could swing wildly between 0 and 85 degrees, dramatically altering seasons and climate every few thousand years. The moon also slows Earth's rotation slightly over time through tidal friction. Earth used to rotate much faster. A day was only about 6 hours long billions of years ago. The moon is quietly a crucial partner in everything that makes Earth survivable. And then, in 1969, we went. Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon, a thing that ancient humans had worshipped, feared, blamed for their madness, and credited with divine power. Turns out it was rocks and craters. No gods, no rabbits, no magic herbs being ground. Just a large gray rock in space. Though, to be fair, there is water ice in some lunar craters, so the alchemical idea of a moon substance isn't entirely without basis. Why? Were ancient humans crazy to be terrified of the moon? Not really. The moon is genuinely powerful. It controls tides, stabilizes our planet, lights our nights. It's real. It affects the world. They were right to take it seriously. They just got some of the details wrong. The good news, all the terrifying things they attributed to the moon turned out to not be real. The bad news, the things the moon actually does are arguably stranger than anything they imagined.